folks, welcome back to Welcome to My World. It's Dominique, and I'm in my car again because who has time for podcasts and blogs when we're running around from place to place all over the country, all over God's green earth, right? So I figure fit this stuff in when it's possible. Now, today we're going to talk about a particular topic, again relating to psychology and cluster B personality disorders, and that is the purity test. You might be wondering what I'm talking about when I refer to the purity test. No, it's not about testing your water to make sure that you're not going to get lead poisoning. It is not about being tested to see whether you're a good person or a true friend. What the purity test is, and actually some folks in the mental health community call it the purity trap. I think that test is actually a better word for it because you are truly being tested. So what the purity test is when someone on the cluster B spectrum, particularly narcissists, but yes, also psychopaths, sociopaths, even borderlines to an extent, and even histrionics will do this. And it is when that person in your life who's on that cluster B spectrum, and again, most likely a narcissist, tries to throw little tests at you. One of the biggest red flags to show that perhaps you're being purity tested by a cluster B is it's hard to define without looking at it like this. Okay, so without specifically asking yourself this question, it's rather hard to define. But ask yourself this: are you being coached to dislike the same people the narcissist dislikes, stop talking to the same people the narcissist or cluster B doesn't want to talk to, stop working with the people that the narcissist or cluster B can no longer work with, or who don't want to work with them, or who don't want to be in their lives? Are you being coached or encouraged or nudged into this? Now, it's not normally just one person in that cluster B individual's life who they're nudging toward, cutting other people out of their life. It's not just one person that this individual is going to target and say, hey, don't talk to this person, don't work with that person, don't associate with this other guy over here. So it's not just you that's going to be tested and pushed to participate in this sort of behavior. Okay, it's actually a whole group of people, because narcissists simply can't live life alone, and they just can't spend time by themselves in their own head alone without going crazy. They've got to pull everyone else into their world, pull everyone else into their drama, and their people, their flying monkeys, their cohorts are going to be pulled in too. And unfortunately, this means that you're going to be, whether you're being groomed to be a flying monkey, whether you are already a flying monkey, and I would urge you to honestly consider and ask yourself whether perhaps you are being groomed or coached to be a flying monkey, or perhaps you're already doing their dirty work and you're already a flying monkey and you're already a support personality. So I want to ask you to be honest with yourself, ask yourself honest questions about this, and if you're in that position, or you suspect you might be, ask yourself, are you being coached? Are you being pushed? Are you being encouraged to like and dislike the people that the cluster B likes and dislikes? Are you being coached? Are you being pushed? Are you being encouraged to not associate with, not work with, not invite into your sphere certain people who, it just so happens that the cluster B in your life doesn't want you to be around. Now, not only are they going to try to separate you from friends and family in your life who are sort of outside of that narcissist or that sociopath sphere of influence, that's a totally different issue. And I apologize if the mic cut out just there. We've got some issues with using Bluetooth and using the rear camera when my car is in reverse. So I'm going to repeat that. Not only is this about having that cluster B person force you into positions where you're not talking to your family or your friends or the people in your sphere that are outside of their sphere of influence, okay? So not only is something like that going to be happening, and that is a totally sort of a different issue, but I'm, in fact, talking about something else that's going to be occurring possibly alongside something like them not wanting you to be around your friends and family and the people out of their circle of influence. So the actual issue I'm talking about is when people you both know, or people that the entire group of you know, are persona non grata with the cluster B. And at that point, these folks are going to be pushed out of your life, and this cluster B is going to be attempting to make sure that you don't associate with anybody who might question their reputation, who might do them any kind of harm. And that is where the danger comes in. Excuse me. And so this is what I want you to look out for in terms of the purity test. This is what I want you to look out for. For instance, I worked with a client, I'm not going to say how recently, just, no, in case that would give too much information away, but somewhat recently I worked with a client who was working with a friend that she quite liked, and as far as how she described things in that relationship and in her life, it sounded to me a little bit suspicious. It sounded to me like perhaps it wasn't the healthiest relationship. But again, it's not my place to tell my clients what to think or who to have in their lives, right? It's not really my job. That's not something that I am interested in doing. But I did sort of make note of this. When my client would meet with me, and when we would have our FaceTime, I sort of made note of this. And so it happened that this person, over the years, was encouraged and coached by their friend at work to stop associating with people that the friend didn't like. So people that my client enjoyed working with were kind of cut out of her sphere because her friend, who was acting rather codependently with my client, didn't approve of them, didn't want her working with them, didn't want her associating with them. And that is a problem. Now, of course, that friend isn't going to come out and say, hey, stop talking to so-and-so, but they may make hints, and this person actually could, such as, anybody who cares about me or anyone who's a loyal friend to me just wouldn't talk to so-and-so. Anyone who had my best interest at heart would work with so-and-so. I can't possibly associate with anyone who associates with so-and-so. And so it's these rather veiled references and these rather veiled threats, even, if you will, which really set that cluster B individual apart from a healthy, well-functioning person. Okay? So if you're finding that someone in your life is sort of setting these boundaries for you, making quote-unquote strong suggestions that you not associate with person A or person B. I'd like you to really consider that. Really think about that. And think about whether it's in your best interest to have this person in your life. Okay? I have certainly dealt, excuse the allergies, folks. Ragweed and pollen are in full, glorious bloom, and my goodness, my asthma has been intense, so please accept my apologies for that. But truly, rather than entertaining the idea of not associating with the person that the cluster B or potential cluster B in your life doesn't want you to associate with, I want you to entertain the possibility of just not associating with them. Okay? It's not the other person you shouldn't be associating with. It's not Bob and Karen and, whoever else that you should be conscious of, divulging information to and conscious of associating with. It's actually your friend or your coworker, this person who is pushing you and coaching you to not have certain individuals in your life. Now, of course, if somebody truly is, abusing or targeting a friend or a coworker, and, this is something you have witnessed firsthand, something that you have witnessed firsthand that wasn't set off to be made to look a certain way, that it was actual abuse, it was actual targeting, it was actual bullying, then sure, use caution when associating with this person, right? However, don't just cut people out of your life. If you are a true professional, you know already that you're going to have to work with folks you don't like from time to time. It's simply an unpleasant reality in the workforce and in the professional world. And if you won't even associate with or talk to anyone that you don't like in any regard, then you're going to have a real hard time in the world. It's possible to be respectful to people that you don't care for. Forgive the begging kitties in the background. They are not starving. I can promise you. They're just little piggies. I know, super professional setup we've got here. But home office comes with kitties, right? And so what I'm suggesting to you is not to burn your bridges. I'm suggesting that you not burn your bridges. And if somebody doesn't like working with a particular person or associating with a particular person, then it's down to them to handle that situation. It's down to them not to work with that person themselves. It's not that person's right or responsibility to tell you who you can associate with. And if somebody is doing that, then look, I'm sorry, but they're likely on the cluster B spectrum. We all are somewhere, but they are more than likely well on their way toward being a real cluster B. They're well along that spectrum. They have obviously been exhibiting symptoms and signs of severe disorder. Now, this is something that you're going to experience in a high school situation, in a grade school situation. This is not something you should be experiencing in adult life. This is not something you should be experiencing in the professional world, right? This is something that children on the playground partake in. This is bullying behavior. And while the smarter or more covert narcissist or sociopath will make these requests seem reasonable, let me tell you, they are not reasonable. It is not reasonable to expect everyone you know or everyone you're trying to pull into your circle to not talk to a certain group of people or a certain individual, especially people that you are going to have to see at work or in social situations. You need to try to get along with folks. Now, you can decide whether or not you want that person to be your best friend, but you don't just write people off. You don't just cut people out and totally disassociate. Apologies, folks. We are having some technical difficulty. I will be back with you very shortly.